So there.
So there.
So there.
So there.
Let me know your thoughts.
So there.
So there.
So there.
Let me know your thoughts.
Why do you keep saying, let us know your thoughts?
Let me know your thoughts to me is a nice lead-in for So There. So There.
Welcome to So There. I'm Gary Doyle, Group Creative Director at Kramer Krasselt in Chicago.
And I'm Tom Karamitis. I work at an undisclosed company. I do not have the courage of Gary Doyle to disclose that company at this time. Perhaps I will in the future.
Tom is considering going by aliases in the future of interesting names, such as Barkevius Mingo.
Or Zeke McAdoo.
Or
Fane Gash. Rance Mullinix.
The Reverend Chicken La Holmes.
You may be wondering why you're listening to this right now and what So There means.
Well, without naming names, the name of the podcast comes from a creative director that we used to work for when we worked for the same agency, and he made a point to somebody on a voicemail about when to come to work and how the agency seemed to function just fine without this person coming to work. And at the end of making the point, he ended with, "So there." And so there has become a theme of ours.
Gary and I, over the years, we've been friends for a long time, but over the last 5 or 6 years have discovered that we actually prefer talking at each other as opposed to talking with each other. And it's gotten to a point where when we communicate, it's solely over voicemail. We do not pick up the phone when the other guy calls, because we both realized we like to talk uninterrupted and unchallenged for 4 to 5 minutes at a time, and then let the other person respond. Our voicemails always end with, "Let me know your thoughts," or "So there."
So that'll be the format of this pod. We're going to each speak for as long as we want to. It will not be an exchange of views. It'll be a one-way conduit of speech, uninterrupted by having to entertain somebody else's thoughts. And that's how we're going to do this.
There will be occasionally uncomfortable silences, which we hope make viewers squirm. It's going to be as much as we're going to try to capture as closely as possible the magic and the hilarity of our voicemail exchanges. So if you're driving as you listen to this, you may want to pull onto the shoulder, because we cannot be held responsible for anyone going off into a fit of what's the word? Uncontrolled
spasms of laughter.
Spasms of laughter. By the way, you may be wondering why the fidelity is so wonderful. I salute Gary Doyle, who has purchased the Snowball.
The Snowball is the microphone, is what the microphone is called, and the Snowball will be a revered object on So There. When I opened the Snowball at home, I made my family leave the premises. I ordered them to go to the library or the Jewel or what have you, so that they would be out of the house when I opened the Snowball. I didn't want them witnessing it. I didn't want them looking at it. I didn't want them touching it. If you've ever seen Spinal Tap, the movie Spinal Tap, where Nigel Tufnell does not want anybody not only not touching his guitars, but not looking at his collection of guitars, that was the Snowball. So when we refer to the Snowball, that'll be the microphone that we're using. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the topic's going to be, then we're going to get into the pod.
And then going forward, as I'm moving the Snowball, by the way, we will occasionally have guests on the pod to make them as uncomfortable as you are. But for today, since it is the first podcast, you will just hear Gary Doyle and Tom Karamitis, and you'll also notice the weird affectation that we really refer to ourselves in the third person. So having given you all that, we're just going to give you a couple of topics today. The first being Gary Doyle's complaint to me coming over here for our record session. We're trying to figure out when we can record. Tom Karamitis suggested that perhaps the best time to record is before our work days begin, early in the morning, which may, occasionally require a little personal sacrifice to get up a little earlier, catch an earlier train. But in typical Gary Doyle fashion, as Tom Karamitis arrived on time, Gary Doyle started to kind of bellyache a little bit, complain about the disruption of his morning routine. And Gary Doyle actually suggested that we do the podcast at his office. Now, I will point out to Gary Doyle that my office is on the way to his office. All right, so it makes no sense for us both to walk further than we cumulatively need to, only to have me double back. I've also suggested to him that the morning makes a lot of sense because there's less of a chance of being preempted. We are in a professional recording studio that no one's in yet, so that tends to be available in the morning. So I would let Gary Doyle know that the morning, it makes a lot of sense because there's less of a chance of being interrupted. There's less of a chance of us having to interrupt our day and schlep over to the other person's place. We could try it later in the day, but I think Gary Doyle then has to be open for the possibility that he's going to be preempted by paying customers. So I think Gary Doyle should mull that over. Let me know your thoughts. So there.
Gary Doyle. Tom Karamitis is a dutiful man. He likes to show up to work at an early hour. He likes to do things by the book. Gary Doyle's not a morning person, does not like disrupting his morning routine. My morning routine is, in the summertime especially, is getting up, drinking coffee, reading the paper with my dog. I have a pug named Lou. Like to sit around in the morning, like to look at Lou, read the paper, ride my bike to the train, not have that disrupted. And I found this disruptive leaving early. So trying not to brood. That's another topic that we'll refer to often here on So There as we brood. Brooding is when you're upset about a message that somebody else has left on somebody else's voicemail. Tom or Gary will brood. And brooding is usually a day or two of silence. So trying not to brood, struggling not to brood, but I think I've risen above. So we're going to have several topics on So There every episode. Today we'll have one topic because we've blathered on and on about the genesis of So There and about our the tension that's already arisen for the first episode. So the first, the one topic we're going to talk about today is commuter irritants. Commuter irritants. Tom and I both ride the train in. We've observed behavior among fellow train riders that irritates us, and we're going to talk about that.
I will say before we jump into this, but in typical fashion, we resolve nothing about the time of these recordings going forward. I think I'd like to at least see if Gary Doyle can acknowledge that perhaps getting together at 8:30 Central Time in the morning or 8:45, will work for him. Having said that, I'll rise above it because I'm a professional, and I'll move on to commuter irritants, of which there are many. One commuter irritant that really struck me today, because I was trying to walk very quickly to get here in time for the podcast and my first meeting with the snowball. I'm constantly irritated by people who cannot walk in a straight line. All right, you want to pass them, and they begin this weird little diagonal move, and you can't pass them. And I would like to point out to people that man has created within the sidewalk and street structure so many ways to guide you, to keep you in a straight line. There's the seam of the sidewalk. There's the stripes and the crossing thing. There's no reason why people have to walk diagonally. So what Tom Karamitis tends to do when he passes someone who's walking diagonally is I deliberately, when I pass them in very close proximity to their body to show them that they were not walking in a straight line, and they caused me to have to veer out of my normal route. It irritates me, especially when I'm in a hurry. So there.
I don't know if any of our listeners are familiar with the Gary Wright song Dreamweaver. Gary Doyle recomposed Dreamweaver one time in his head while watching somebody weave from side to side on the sidewalk. Goes something like this. You're a sidewalk weaver. I don't know why you're weaving left to right. You're a sidewalk weaver. So, yeah, that's a little song for sidewalk weavers. But I think something else that irritates me no end. If you're a commuter, you've perhaps experienced this. So you exit the train, you're walking out the exit doors of the train station, and the doors, they're big, heavy doors, and they kind of require an effort to push open, and people file through them, and it's a stream of people filing through them, and to keep the door open, most people will kind of just do a little, kind of extend their arm just a little bit to keep the door open for the person behind them. But occasionally there's a person in front of you who, when that door is starting to close, instead of extending their arm to keep it open for the person behind them, will kind of do what we call the sachet maneuver, kind of a sachet maneuver through the door, not expending any effort to keep it open, so that it shuts on the person, so that this very heavy door shuts on the person behind them. Tom Karamitis and Gary Doyle loathe these people, and we want them killed. So there's that. There's also the person who. So I've got several. There's people on the train lines where I go north. I live in the northern suburbs. In the wintertime, who wear cowboy hats. Now I find this irritating and inexplicable, because cowboy hats. You're not a cowboy. You're probably a lawyer, who works in the loop. You're not a cowboy, so don't try to fool anybody. But cowboy hats give you no protection from the elements. They don't cover your ears. They're not particularly warm, and yet certain men of the Union Pacific North line insist on wearing cowboy hats. So I find that explicable and kind of irritating. And the last thing I'll say is, and I don't want to use up all the oxygen for Tom Karamitis, but somebody gets on a train, you're behind them, they enter the train car, and it becomes this incredibly fraught decision as to whether to go left upstairs or right upstairs. So they look and crane their necks to the left and think, should I go up there? Then they look and crane their necks to the right and think, should I go up there? Then they look left and then they look right. So it's a big decision as to which way to go, which path to take their seat. It's a big decision. And then they finally plunge ahead after surveying the situation for 15, 20 seconds. And I find that irritating as well. Let me know your thoughts.
Well, I have one other thing that came to mind. I think men especially will be able to relate to this, because I thought it was actually a pretty impressive observation that I made once. You're getting on the train, and for some reason, and I think it's when men were boys or teenagers and they got their first suit, they were told, it's you never want to wrinkle your suit. Your suit can never get wet. You have to always treat the suit like gold. So you see a man will be standing in the aisle, taking off his sports jacket or his suit jacket, and he's folding this thing like it's the Shroud of Turin, right? He folds it across the shoulders, and then he folds it in half, and it's like this precious little thing, and he carefully puts it on the overhead thing, and people are stacking up behind this guy, and you can't get by because of the way they fold their damn suit jacket thing. which he probably got at Steinmart for $59, but still, in the psychology of men, the sports jacket, the suit thing, it must never be wrinkled, it must never get wet, it's treated with the utmost care and respect, and it really irritates Tom Karamitis. Tom Karamitis will stand there, I will sigh, I will put my hand on my hip, and I will usually flash a passive-aggressive look, some might say a dirty look, at the person as I go by. I'll usually kind of exhale loudly as I go by. But yes, the Shroud of Turin phenomenon I found is something specific to men. I have not seen women do this. All right? Let me know your thoughts.
Rookie maneuver there. I don't know if our listeners at home or wherever you are heard my cell phone ding. Rookie maneuver. We're new to this podcasting game, all right? Cut us a little slack. Turn the phone off. Lesson learned. This is the beta, as they say in the tech world. This is the launch, as they say in the marketing world, of So There. So, cut me a little slack, people. I don't know what else I have. We have a chatty conductor on our train. And he's very chatty in the sense of he doesn't chat with you, obviously. He's just kind of saying where the train is going, but he goes, yeah, folks, so welcome. Yeah, good to have you aboard. Nice day in Chicago, and we're heading north. And we'll try to get you there all safely, yeah. So have your tickets available, and, that'd be great. And good to see the Cubs won last night. So the first stop will be Clybourne. Thank you, folks. Right, so I find that conductor irritating. But the last piece that I will leave you with, and it's this is not just limited to trains, but loud cell phone talkers. Gary Doyle builds his commuting schedule around the quiet cars because loud cell phone talkers annoy Gary Doyle. I've often wanted to get one of those. There's cell phone jammers that are illegal in the United States, but they're used by law enforcement, and you can buy them on the gray market for like $100. And what they do is they eliminate all cell phone calls in like a 50-yard radius. So imagine someone yakking loudly on their cell phone, and you kind of reach into your bag and you take out this little device, which I guess is about the size of a cell phone, and you kind of hit a button, and phone call ends. Phone call's cut off. Hello, 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 hello. I would love to get one of those. The man I used to work with, can I name him? Larry Zuger, art director, creative director at Leo Burnett, actually. And I have thought about going in on one of these for years. Cell phone jammers. So let me know your thoughts.
I will add one other thing to what Gary Doyle said a minute ago about the irritating conductor. I find there's a subset of people who cannot help themselves when they are issued a microphone. When they have access to a microphone, even though the automated announcements on most commuter trains will give you all the information you'd ever need, there's a subset of people who can just not help themselves. And more often than not, like Gary Doyle and Tom Karamitis, they are 2-bit comedians who are not as funny as they think they are, and they will just blather on. As Gary Doyle pointed out, he's in a quiet car, all right? So to me, the quiet car means, other than important automated announcements, that's all we should really hear, all right? This stupid stuff, and I used to have a conductor who would give a brief weather forecast as you were pulling into the station. Hey, great day in Chicago today, 65 and so, no one cares. And I think they care, but no one else cares, and they blather on and on and on, and it just makes my commuter irritation quotient rise exponentially. So I think that kind of covers this topic for me. So there.
All right, so that wraps our first episode of So There, a podcast about marketing, inexplicable human behavior, commuter irritations, and whatever else comes to mind. I'm Gary Doyle.
And I'm Tom Karamitis. Thank you for joining us. We don't know when we'll be back. It could be tomorrow or it could be in 2 months. But by all means, I assume you can search for this podcast, and it's probably going to be worthwhile. As I said, we will have guests in the future. and some may really surprise you.
And we'll sign off by saying, so there!